Hello and welcome to the Created Mind podcast, where we discuss psychology and its influence on culture from a Christian perspective. My name is Ashley Hagman. I'm a therapist and adjunct professor of psychology. And today we have a guest. We have Dr. John Raymond on the podcast, and he is going to talk with us about a model of counseling that is rooted in existential thought and was very interesting to me. I encountered his presentation. So I'm a part of a therapist group on Facebook. Mostly is where I interact, but I mean it's a real life group, and they have a conference yearly. And I saw his talk advertised on existentialism and or existential therapy, and that's not a common model that I see used, but one that I have really been interested in, as you know if you've been listening. And so I was like, I got to reach out. I got to see if we can have this conversation. And I'm very excited that he's here today. So, John, can you give us a little overview on your background, your current career, any specialties, niches? Where did you tell me about your practice a little bit?
Well, I have a lot of my background, but it's related to counseling. It would be master's in counseling, master's in psychology with a specialty in health, and then a doctorate of ministry in leadership and spiritual formation. Graduated in 2006, was licensed in 2009, been in private practice with my wife. She's also an LPC.
Wow.
She graduated in 1987, so she's got a lot of years under her belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the technical aspect. But ever since then, it's been a journey trying to figure out what this thing called counseling is all about and how to go about
Yeah.
doing it effectively with people, with all the different modalities that are out there.
Yeah, that's what I found going through your education. You're presented with so many models and things that make sense to you that you think are going to work. You try them with a client and it's like, nope. And different clients are different. It's hard to sort things through and see what really works.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can relate to that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does. And what I found diving into this is life has culminating points or milestones, right? Or markers, places where you hang your hat. It's like, oh, that was it. But then you find out, no, that's not it. It was also this, and it was also this. But
Mm,
one of them was looking at the different models. I started seeing that there was a thread between them all. Not only that, but the diagnosis. This idea of transdiagnostic. I think I got the term by reading understood what it was, but I didn't know the term. By reading Dr. Joshua Knapp's book, Christian Meditation, and this idea that there's a lot of similarities between the DSM categories of diagnosis, and then how people treat it today seems to be a lot of it's focused on mindfulness practices. DBT, calming the spirit down. Being centered.
mhm.
A lot of the mindfulness exercises. So they got a so-called trans-therapeutic model. So you have your trans-diagnostic and your trans-therapeutic, and it all kind of blends
Okay.
together. So for me, I was like putting this all together, and just too many things were similar. And I was trying to develop a model, and you know how it is when you sit with somebody, you pull a tool from here, and you pull a tool from there, and you
Yeah.
pull another tool from there. But I wanted to put it in a framework that I could actually put it down on a note, because we're supposed to do
Yeah.
this idea about
Yep.
notes, right? So I started organizing it that way. Yeah, I'm trying to get a timeline in my head how it all played out. Things just started piecing together. The EMDR, I got in there. That really got me thinking about what actually is going on with EMDR, because nobody could really
Yeah.
explain it, right? And I started thinking, well, it gives the client permission to sit there and kind of get into a meditative state with the person in the room,
Hmm.
or just to get into that meditative state. There might be something going on with the bilateral stimulation, different hemispheres, some people think. But I think it's more to do with that contemplative state, being curious. So I got my doctorate in ministry and spiritual formation, leadership and spiritual formation, started diving into this spiritual formation, spiritual direction.
Hmm.
And during my dissertation, I had to quickly, how dissertations go, had to quickly come up with a format for the dissertation. I shifted over to a curriculum format to build it into a curriculum. And my topic was helping husbands who are married to women who are sexually abused as children.
Hmm.
So I turned it to curriculum. So I started studying curriculum, and it dawned on me like, 'cause a lot of this curriculum is really counseling. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and ran into a book. I think it was written in 1972 or 76 called "Teaching as Treatment," and it's got me thinking. Well, Bloom's model. I don't know if you know anything about Bloom's.
Just from I was reading your slides that you sent me. I think that's the first thing I've seen about that.
Yeah, and that's an educational model that they use to make objectives, as you're teaching classes and to determine where people are at in the process of learning. And it started all coming together. It was still kind of loosely fitting together, try to make it to where it looked presentable on a note.
Yeah.
And you know how that goes, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah, and then you're supposed to have like your own notes, but then you have the official notes. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
whatever. They're notes.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic in and
And
of itself.
how to make it, like, time effective too,
Mhm.
because you could spend so long on your notes, but, um, yeah,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't have time to see people. Yeah.
No, right, you don't. It does take a lot of time with the notes. So I was trying to formulate a model to actually do these notes, but also think about this, what I'm doing with people with all these different modalities kind of chunked into one kind of thing. And then I started taking a spiritual director's course because I figured if I have a doctorate in spiritual formation, might as well get a certifications as a spiritual director. But what I noticed was that a lot of the material the spiritual directors are using out there is really existentialism.
Mm.
So that like piqued an interest for me to study a little bit more into existentialism, and it really was a lot. They use Gerald May wrote some literature that they use for spiritual directors, and Gerald May. I thought, wait a minute now, I know that name May.
Yeah, I
Is
know
he
May.
related to right? Is he related to Rollo May? And he is. He's his brother,
Wow, interesting. Huh.
right? So we know Rollo May is supposed to be like the founder of humanistic existentialism, right? So here is his brother doing this kind of spiritual direction kind of thing. So I started thinking, like, yeah, this is spiritual direction is really a form of existentialism, existential therapy.
Yeah.
So that rounded it out for me. And that's when I put it all into this format I call Christian existential hope theory or therapy. It helps me organize my brain, when I'm sitting down with
Yeah.
people and organize my notes, because really the notes should be a reflective exercise and finding out what happened in the session, what's not
Mhm.
happening in the session, what might be the direction in the next session.
Helps you formulate the structure, so that you're actually doing something and not just being a professional friend, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so what part of the existential thought really grabbed you first? What was the most compelling part of that to you that was interesting?
Well, it tagged into Bowen's family systems theory, which really helped me out understanding what was going on with the dynamics with the couples where one of them was experienced childhood sexual abuse, and actually in our society today, which I don't know uh, many programs actually teach Bowen. And when I was going, through this examination back in 2010, 2011, I had university professors tell me that they really can't teach that in the universities because yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Um,
Interesting. I
uh,
it was taught in mine, but I did go to a private Christian school, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but
and so I might have a limited sample, of professors telling me this, but I think the reason being is they put a lot of energy into attachment theory. So if you look at
okay.
attachment theories, there are some attachment theorists out there, especially in the marriage and family realm, who totally discount what Bowen was talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of hostile toward Bowen. But what Bowen was talking about was more of responsibility, right?
Mm.
Being
Mhm.
differentiated within a system or an organism. Like, cells are differentiated from other cells, which makes tissues, which makes organs, which makes the whole body system. And if they're not differentiated, then they cause damage to the rest of the organism. Bowen really helped me understand this idea of differentiation of self. And personal responsibility,
Yeah.
which goes into the political realm of freedom. You know, you, sure, we can have freedom, but without responsibility is chaos,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
the god of freedom is a Roman god, and it's not very pleasant. so,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, um, so this idea of responsibility, and then with existentialism, it is about responsibility. It's understanding that what you're doing is you're making a choice, and then you make that choice, and you have consequences with that choice. So that's the first thing that kind of got me into it. But the rest of it, yeah, existentially humanism is kind of empty, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I feel that what's compelling about existentialism for me, humanistic existentialism, is that it's the questions that are being asked. It's the questions that we all have in our souls, but it doesn't have the answers. It doesn't land in a place of meaning or hope. It lands in a place of despair. And so that's where I feel like the Christian faith answers the questions that exist. I feel that humanistic existentialism is sort of the beginning. It's just the beginning of the journey, and it needs to happen. The questions need to be asked, but yeah, it's not going to land you in a great place.
So when I was looking into this, I was thinking, well, is there a Christian existentialism? And so I found a guy named John Finch. If I get names wrong, please pardon me. I get names wrong all the time.
You're fine.
Yeah, names don't stick in my head. I noticed somebody was posting about I'm sitting with people all the time, and I'm finding out that I can't remember things. And I think doing counseling has an effect on a person's brain to recall things.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great dissertation for somebody to do an examination. What happens to counselors, through the
Yeah.
years?
There's
So,
so much you have to remember, like seeing so many people in a day.
mhm.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and just the sitting with somebody and listening. It's just
Yeah.
the mechanism of listening, training your brain to listen. Trying to formulate an intervention. Short
Mhm.
intervention most of the time, and just you're listening. So you're really not talking much because we're not supposed to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then we forget how to talk.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just my personality. I don't have a problem with the talking. I have to rein myself in. I have to,
Yeah.
but I get it out in the teaching aspect. So that way I can spew all of my in the podcast, I can
Mhm.
spew all of my my thoughts and ideas so I can get it all out and focus on the person.
Yeah. I was thinking 'cause this was something that came up today. And I was thinking that's exactly what counselors need to do. They need to talk. Maybe every counselor needs to have their own podcast so they can talk. Right.
My husband gets it too. Before I was doing this, I would just s- spew things off of him, and
Okay.
so
So this is kind of like marriage
it was an outlet.
therapy exercises for you.
Yeah, there you go. Spare him.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So getting into this thing, are there Christian existentialists? And I found this guy, John Finch, and they pretty much erased him. They tried to erase him. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think he is, I think it was Fuller Seminary, where he started working at integrating psychology into theology early. I think it might have been back in the 60s. So I think that was the first attempt to integrate. It was through Fuller. I might be wrong. Pardon me if I am, as far as the seminary.
Yeah.
Um, but I know it was him, but he got into some trouble. He took his research for curiosity a little bit too far. And so he got, accused of inappropriate behaviors of some of his clients, um,
Mm.
which I think that kind of erased this existential thought and plus the humanistic components. So I think the church has kind of squelched it a bit. Yeah. And there was another one, Clyde Halbrook, Faith and Community. That's a good book. It was written in 1959.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a Christian existential approach. So you see
Hmm.
that back in the 50s and 60s, they were talking more about existentialism within a Christian faith, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you said, you haven't heard too much about it, right? I mean, how much have you heard about it?
No,
Not
none
much,
of
right?
those.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I think of course, I feel like I've heard a lot of the humanist existentialists. So more like Rollo May, I guess, would be the closest to a Christian existentialist that I've read. And so, but I mean, so it's kind of like in my thought growth, it's more of been reading those and then having to like connect my own dots with faith and theology and things like that. So I haven't read a lot of really solid Christian existentialists, but I feel like it goes so well together.
It does, and it rounds it out. They have what they call their presuppositions or their givens, right?
Hmm.
And the givens that I've taken from them, and this is what I present to people when I see them. Um, number one is giving reason for accepting limitations may reduce fear and help you live thoroughly. Okay, so it's the limitation part of life. We are limited. How do we know we're limited? Because you're going to die.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about
Yeah.
that, right?
Hmm.
Right. The Bible says you have to do one thing, and that is to die.
Yeah.
Right. But that gets into CBT then shoulds and have tos and
Yeah.
so, right.
Right. Oh man.
so 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 that takes CBT out because you have to die. There's no getting
Yeah.
around that, right?
You can't get
So
around. Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. CBT's done. No, it's not done. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah. So accepting limitations may reduce fear and help you live thoroughly. And then number two, I have being persuasive and understanding isolation as being alone. Now that's where the humanistic theorists would say that's where you're at. You are
Yeah.
alone. You are isolated. But I don't think so. I say with the assistance of the Holy Spirit in determining the direction of your life may assist you in agency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I say agency for a reason. But yeah, we're not alone. And when we
Yeah.
realize that, it really can help us. So I think that's where they got the humanists have got it wrong. I think this
Hmm.
might be one of the reasons why, Christians want to avoid this
Yeah.
because we're not
But
alone.
I think it's something that on your way to exploring your faith that you need to recognize, because I think it's so easy to, like you said, not differentiate yourself
Mhm,
and to be absorbed into your relationships and to have your hope and your faith and and your identity all tied up in your systems and your relationships, and to not have any sense of you yourself, of your own choices and your own responsibility in your life. And I think one thing that and one reason why this was really compelling to me was like in college I began to realize that no matter how close I am with somebody, there's always a gap. Nobody knows me completely. No human knows me completely. As close as much as I talk to somebody, they cannot there's a sense in which they can't enter my experience, they can't know my innermost thoughts and my innermost being. And so in essence I'm alone. And that's the beginning of it. That's the questions that we need to ask and we need to explore and we need to acknowledge. And then the theology, the faith aspect of no, we're not alone because the Holy Spirit knows us intimately and completely. You're revealing the need, and then faith comes in and shows the beauty of the reality of what God does for us. And
mhm.
yeah, that's what gets me really excited.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, it is that acknowledgement, like you said, that we are kind of alone and to grapple with that differentiation aspect of it. That kind of stinks when you think, man, we're alone.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. It
yeah,
was real depressing.
yeah,
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
read minds. I don't know. Some people might be able to.
Yeah. Seems like it for sure.
Yeah, I've heard some stories. So, and then number three, I have appraising what gives you meaning and purpose may assist you in formulating a vision. So again,
Mm.
the second one was agency, and this one is formulating the vision, with the meaning and purpose. Okay.
Mhm.
And then number four is deciding that choices made from freedom and responsibility may assist you in developing and working on a course of action healthy for you and the community at large. So this is not an isolated thing because we are in
Yeah.
community, right? Number five is hope contains three elements. So again, this is hope theory, right? Christian existential hope. So
Yeah.
if you look at hope, this is where the introduction of hope comes in. It has three parts. You have to have a vision. I'm going someplace. There has to be a pathway to get there.
Mhm.
or a semblance of a pathway or something. And then you have to be able to believe that you can get down that path.
Mhm.
So it's agency, vision, and pathway are the three components of
Yeah.
hope, right? And hope theory, I've found some material, again, goes back into the 70s. Some of these books were written in 50s, 60s, and 70s. Dr. Ripley, I think Dr. Worthington also wrote a book, Hope Therapy for Couples. She's down at Regent University. And so she uses hope theory in her model of couples therapy.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Worthington book.
Mhm.
I read that one in my education. The hope focused marriage counseling or
Yeah. So,
family
yeah,
counseling. Yeah.
it's back here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that hope, I mean, I did an episode about that, about like the hope is so key to what you're doing. It's like when you have that vision, like you said, the vision of what it could be, the pathway to get there. And yeah, like you said, and the agency that you really can do that, then all the rest I feel like it flows. It's so much easier because you have the buy-in, you have the belief, the self-efficacy of like, I can really attain this. And when you really believe that you can, and it's really something beautiful and real to you, doing the things that you need to get there is just, it's so much easier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to believe in your dissertation if you're gonna write it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
Right. Or even
Yeah.
school, you have to believe in, you're a professor at a university, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Right. I mean, the students have to believe in something to
Yeah.
to do it.
And I see it sometimes when I get in my classes, there's some students that they don't believe they can do it, and then they just get in their head and they get overwhelmed, and they get overwhelmed and they're like, "Oh, it's so much." And it's like, "Well, if you believe you can do it, if you have that self-efficacy, then it's just one foot in front of the other." And most of the time, if I can meet with them and express that I really believe that they can do it, and then we make a plan, the pathway, then most of the time they can have that belief of like, I really can do it, and they finish it out and they do well. But yeah, a lot of times you just get in your head and you get overwhelmed and then you give up,
Yeah.
and yeah, then you don't make it to the finish line.
Yeah, and then you work on another finish line.
Yeah. And sometimes you do. I mean, sometimes you
Yeah.
need to switch gears.
Sometimes you figure, maybe this really wasn't my vision. Maybe this is something that just got me started to another path, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
But exploring that is essential. Like, I don't
Mhm.
see the path going forward here. Something's tough because we can't all do everything, which goes
Yeah.
back to the first one. We're limited.
That's something I've been, like, exploring DBT with, is that radical acceptance of what is. There's the story, I don't know if you've heard it, about the man with the all the dandelions in his yard, where he's trying to exterminate the dandelions, and he's going through so much grief trying to exterminate the dandelions that he never enjoys his yard. And at the end of the summer, he finally realizes, wow, I can't do anything about it. And meanwhile, he's wasted this time. So it's like a radical acceptance of the things that are, of your limitations, of the sufferings of this world, that you can't change those things, and yet so accepting those things, but yet also having that sense of responsibility and that sense of self-efficacy that I can make choices and I can respond differently is something I can change in this situation, even though I can't change certain things, or even though I do have limitations. Yeah,
Yeah.
that balance there.
Yeah, he might have been driven to eradicate the dandelions, but actually that drive might have been he needed to eat the dandelions because it would have been healthy for him.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. Make a nice salad.
Yeah. Or the roots or whatever. So it
Yeah.
might have been a provision instead of something he needed to get rid of.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Perspective.
Really is. And then I have here the sixth one. The goal is to clarify, understand, and respond with willful grace and determinism toward experience perceptions with a vision in mind. So that's kind of, you might read that and think that's kind of nebulous goal, but it means something to me. So if you clarify and understand and respond with willful grace, because you just don't want to be a train wreck, and determinism, you're determined towards experience perceptions with the vision in mind, because all this is experience. We experience everything that we do, right?
Mhm.
Um, and these experiences are through our perceptions, just like with the dandelions, right?
Yeah.
And to be curious and to examine those perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So those are the overarching presuppositions for. Yeah, I even have a hard time saying Christian existential hope theory. I just came up with that
Yeah.
term.
It's descriptive.
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you what it is.
Mhm.
One thing that I've always had a tension with existentialism is the idea of agency, of self-agency, and then also sovereignty of God and sort of his plan for our lives and the way that he directs things and his ultimate involvement in everything. How would you land on that of upholding both like our agency and our genuinely making choices and also the sovereignty of God?
So,
Big question, I
yeah,
know.
right. So I'm also a mentor and professor at Redemption Seminary, which is it's an online model and it's a face to face. So this comes up, Calvinism versus Arminianism, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Predestination versus free will. So my view is this: there might be this thing called predestination, but it is I who experience my choices,
Mm. Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, God is sovereign, and if He is Lord, He's Lord.
Mhm.
Yeah, end of story. And if I have to feel like I have some kind of agency or something to do in this thing we call life, right?
Yeah.
To further the end of what he's put in front of us, but with the understanding that he is Lord, and that if I go down this path, I still understand that he is Lord and he is directing my path, and that's just not like here's a carrot, come down over here. It's actually he actually is directing, right? It might be
Mhm.
a carrot. Say, hey, come on down over here and get in this boat, right? Okay, I want to get in the
Yeah.
boat. And then he creates a storm.
Yeah.
He says, "You guys go out in the boat, and I'll catch up with you." Right? And then
Mhm.
there's a storm created, and he's walking on the water, and one of the guys like, "Hey, I got to get out of this boat," and he gets out of the boat, and he can walk for a little while. Right? Now, did he direct all that? Did he make all that happen? As an example for for us for eternity, and for those guys in the boat, probably.
Mhm.
Right? We're still reading
Yeah.
about it today.
Yeah, I think I land pretty similarly. I mean, I would identify myself as reformed and compatibilist, I would say, of the idea of we're not just puppets. We're not just puppets that God directs, but he is Lord and sovereign over all things. And there's a reason that we're going through everything that we go through. And it's not just he sets us in motion and he hopes we do things so that it works out with his plan. So I it's gotta be both of those things. It's got to, like you said, if he's Lord, he's Lord. He needs to the things that occurred in scripture had to occur that way because that was his plan. That's to show us truths about himself and about the way he works in his creation. Yet at the same time, we do genuinely make choices and it's the experience of that, like you said, it's like we are experiencing our own choices and that is true. And yet also God is sovereign and there's a reason why we're going through. And I think that's really powerful in counseling is the sense of what we are going through, there is meaning in it. So the sufferings that we go through, the things that happen are not just senseless things that randomly happen in our life. There is a purpose that's for our good and for his glory. And yet at the same time, we're not just thrown about by the whims of someone else. Like we are genuinely, there's things that we can do. We have agency, we have self efficacy. I keep saying that in our lives and in our choices that we can choose a path, we can do things. Yeah. I think you have to have both of those to direct to move towards healing.
Yeah, it's like Viktor Frankl, being a prisoner in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Somehow he got meaning out of all that. And
Yeah.
6 months after he got out, his book was written.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on a typewriter.
Yeah. That book was so So Man's Search for Meaning, for those listening, by Viktor Frankl. Highly recommend. It's a short book, and but so compelling, so beautiful. And he talks about all of the terrible things that he went through in the concentration camp and how he observed that when you are at that level of physical deprivation and challenge, that the difference between life and death is mindset. That if you give up on life, you're going to die. But if you have a meaning, something to live for, some reason, some purpose, then you can hold on. And yeah, he quotes, I think it's actually Nietzsche, he who has a why can bear almost anyhow. And that's
Mhm.
such a huge quote for me in my life of, yeah, you can go through so much, but if you have a why, if you have a purpose, if you have meaning to it, you can bear up under it and endure it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the people in the camp who, they would determine in their minds that they're going to be rescued at a certain time, and that time came about and they weren't rescued.
Yeah.
They were like dead within a week.
Despair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt that. This is complete shadow of that experience, but when I was pregnant and your due date comes and goes.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, and then the week after your due date comes and goes, it's like, it's devastating. Like, you think, if you put in your mind, if you have this idea of, I'm going to have my baby at this time, and it doesn't happen, it's so easy to despair and it really wrecks you emotionally. But if you have that mindset, some of my friends had a better perspective of baby will come when it needs to, like
Mhm.
more of this acceptance of what it is, then you can have a lot more peace about it. It changes the whole experience of the waiting. Yeah.
Mhm. It does. It's like seeing the finish line at the end of a marathon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
And knowing where the finish line really is, and not having a preconceived notion of, oh, it's going to be here and then it's not. So having an accurate view of like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a couple months ago, we were in Colorado and we did what was it? The Manitou Incline, my wife and I and son-in-law, and it's like 2,700 steps up the side of the mountain. And there's a false summit to where you think you're at the top of
Ooh.
it, right?
Oh, that's brutal.
Right. And so we were walking up there, and this guy's like, we're talking, is like, where's this false summit? And the guy's like, oh, it's right here, it's right here. And I'm like, this doesn't look like a false summit, but no, it's right here, it's right here. And so we're thinking, okay, so we only got so much more to go, and that was not the false summit.
No. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about all of these things, thinking about it was six different points that you had.
Right.
So can you give sort of an example of how that might apply? How do you work with that with your clients? How does that a little bit more concretely work out in someone's life?
So those are the presuppositions. Okay.
Hmm.
That kind of supports the rest of the model.
Yeah,
The model has 5 different phases. Don't you just love this? See
I love it.
the numbers and phases and objectives and goals. So the first phase is observation and description. Is we just get a factual explanation of what happened or what's happening. And this is where some existentialists will, this is how they operate. There's no
Okay.
subjective experience. It's all bracketing. You're just clarifying. Just again, I know people say objective. I don't think there's anything as truly objective because it's all
Yeah,
subjective, right?
yeah, yeah.
But as objective as possible is phase one. Describe the events of what happened. And then the phase two is the agency part of hope. And that is, I can talk about how I incorporate Matthew 5 in this in a minute, but phase two is agency of hope. And this is probably the largest portion of the model where you address acute symptoms. You kind of establish baselines. You examine internal experiences and drives for whatever troubling event that you bring into the session. And really what you're doing is you're making the explicit, did I get these right? You're making the implicit explicit.
There you go.
Right, right,
Yeah, yeah.
right. And turn it into an experiential reflection, not only of, your own objective internal experiences to whatever thing happened or is happening, but also you try to get the objective, try to understand the objective, say the other person, like in a marriage
Hmm.
counseling, what the
Mhm.
objective experience of the other person is, right? And what
Mhm.
my subjective, how do I, what's my subjective experience of, what happened also with the other person. So it's a process of, I guess you could say it's empathy or humility. You're trying
Mhm.
to figure out who you are and who you're not. The good and bad inside of this is Bowen kind of thing, the good and bad inside of me, and the good and bad inside of somebody else, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
David Schnark, he talks about this in his model that he bases off of Bowen's family systems theory. He's like, the good in me can identify the bad in me, right?
Yeah.
If there's no bad in me, well, then we question if there's good because there
Yeah.
is bad, and can the good,
Yeah. Wait.
right? If I say there
Yeah.
is no sin, well, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so phase two is that exploration of basic human functioning, also how we interact with each other. So that's a big component. That's where I incorporate like DBT or CBT or any of those modalities that we learn in school and afterwards. A lot of that's in that phase two, and then phase three is the vision, and is where some people might start delineating counseling from coaching
Hmm.
because now you're shooting for a vision. You're not necessarily going in the past. But I don't know how they do that because your past informs who you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, another discussion. So you're creating a vision. That's phase three. You're formulating short-term vision and a long-term vision. Phase four is the pathway. You're formulating a strategy for personal change. What is the path? You start to establish a pathway of hope. And this also goes into the trans-theoretical model of change, where you have pre-contemplation, contemplation, plan, and action and maintenance. It's just, all these things, they all go together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities to this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
have
not
an episode about that too.
say what was that? What's that?
I said I have an episode about that too. Actually, I think it was my not the last one, but the one before that that I was talking about
Well,
the stages of change
yeah, right.
and yeah, how we work through those things and yeah, establish that and yeah.
Yeah. So see how it all. So with this model here, I'm not claiming anything. I'm not copyrighting this. People can do whatever they want to do with it. They can criticize it. They can build on it. They can change it. I change it all the time because I've run
Mhm.
across something like, oh, that's not right. You know,
Yeah.
because we're all in a
Yeah.
learning process, right? But some of these models are like, oh, this is just the way it is, and that's what you do, which
Yeah.
then limits people within that. Well, maybe that's my problem. I have a problem dealing with limitations.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a black and white person, and so when things are presented to me black and white, it's like soul sucking. And especially in this field, I feel there's no black and white approach that works with everybody. And there's no one right way of doing it. And so we're all conceptualizing together, and there's some things that work better for some people and some that work better for others. And you, as a practitioner, are part of it too. So there's theories that you just can't do because they're not genuine to who you are and the way that you practice, even though someone else might do it and it's very effective. And so it's like, I think it's a lot more nebulous, which is hard, but it's that subjective, but also objective. Like there are things that genuinely do work and research has shown is more effective for certain things. But yeah, it's a process. And I feel like I'm constantly changing, evolve. I wouldn't say changing, I would say developing
Yeah, you're growing,
my
right?
approach. Yeah. Hmm.
Because if we don't, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
robots, and might as well just use AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a problem now.
Hmm.
Is AI therapy. I'm increasingly seeing a lot of people that are talking about why go to a therapist when you can just talk to AI? And it's convincing. That's what's scary. I've talked to it a little bit and I'm like, whew,
Yeah, there's something to
like it feels, yeah, it feels kind of real sometimes.
it. Does. But I guess it would be growing because it's AI. It would be accumulating more data from all the the EHRs that are
From all of
inputting.
us.
Yeah, so there you go. Jesus is
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. But one answer that I had, this is like a rabbit trail, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say it real quick. But one thing that I think when I do encounter people that talk about AI as a therapist is one point is that you can never know AI because AI is not a person with a personality. So the AI is the accumulation of many personalities. And so it's not going to be consistent. It can't be consistent because it's not a person. It doesn't have an identity. It doesn't have a singular point of view. And so when someone is talking to me, they can know me and they can trust me because they have a track record with me. They know who I am, both my faults and my,
Mhm.
good things. But you can't ever truly know AI because it's an amalgamation of everything. You can't truly have that. And what's important to the counseling is not just the techniques that we use, it's the relationship.
Absolutely.
That's the true, like you talked about experiential, like that is the true engine for change is the relationship. And so you can't have that trust with an AI because it's not a person. And so, anyways, that's my soapbox of why that doesn't work. But
It's just it's true. It might even make people more narcissistic.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed too, it tells you what you wanna hear a
Oof.
lot of times. If you ask it enough questions, if you push it enough on your viewpoint, it acknowledges your viewpoint and validates it and goes with it. It just tells you what you wanna hear a lot.
Wow. So if you're suicidal,
Yep.
that could get complicated.
Yeah. And I like what you talked about it is subjective, but you're also viewing the situation from the objective because people come to counseling, they know they're in the subjective part.
Mm.
They've lived their in their brains, and that's the problem, is they're stuck in whatever part of their mind or whatever experience, whatever, subjective thing is going on. They're stuck there, and that's what's causing a problem. And so when you're coming to counseling, if you're just going to a therapist that's endlessly validating and not ever pushing you to a different perspective of the situation, it's not gonna help you in any way. It's just gonna further push you down into your mind, which is usually a bad thing in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually, I'm not going to get into details of this, but when I started going to a counselor many, many, many decades ago, this counselor, she highlighted something to me that made me really think about what had happened, growing up. And the way she presented was like, "So you're saying this?" It's like a motivational interview or anything. "So you're saying
Yeah.
this, and I'm hearing that."
Mm. Mhm.
So I started thinking about it, I was like, "Wow, you got a point, right?"
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if AI can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pathway of hope,
Yep.
phase 4, formulating a strategy of path for hope, like, getting back into trans theoretical model of change. And stage or phase 5 is the work of change, the maintenance and closure. The
Mm.
client wants closure. I know a lot of therapists say, "Oh, you have to end it because people have a problem with closure." But sometimes people just like to come back and just maintenance. You get
Yeah.
into a spiritual direction kind of thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Do you often see people what long term or like what is sort of the range that you generally see people for?
so that was the question. The conference there that you were talking about is, can you do this in 8 sessions? Because if you look at all the objectives in there, there's no way that you can
No.
really cover all these in 8 sessions, right?
Yeah.
But I have done it in 8 sessions.
Really? Wow.
But here's the deal:
That's nice.
this isn't something that they just experience in the session. This is something that I give to them, and I say, if you want, explore these different stages and objectives.
Mm.
This is a syllabus because what
Yeah.
they're doing in counseling is they're learning something different, right?
Yeah.
So we can go through the model in 8 sessions and kind of experience some of it and see how it works, and then they can take it from there and do the exploration on their own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. If you have someone who's more self-motivated and can just do it, and has that
Yeah.
drive. Yeah.
I've actually had somebody
Yeah.
put this through AI
Really?
and develop a
How
plan
did that go?
with all the other stuff that, they had going on. They kinda, like, put it all together with this. It worked out pretty good for them. That was it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was
So
their
it kind of
sessions.
like pieced out what they needed to do for.
Yeah.
That's interesting. See, that's I feel like that's a good way of using AI is like things that are just sort of it would just take you a couple minutes to well, probably take you longer because you're not a computer, but like
Mhm.
to just organize things and put it into a nice pack. It's not doing the actual creative personal thinking. It's doing the menial tasks
Mhm.
that don't really challenge your brain very much.
Yeah. It yeah, so that's the model, but then, you get into the rest of the objectives and all that. That's where it gets a little bit complicated into the weeds.
Yeah.
And but just briefly, under each one of those goals, because your students might be listening to this, under each one of the goals, there are objectives because you have to have objectives under the goals.
Hmm.
And so I just have that in my mind when I'm sitting with people. Where are we at? What phase are we at?
Yeah.
And a lot of times in one session, you can cover all the different phases.
Yeah. It's a lot of back and forth. It's like one session they're in the active state. They're making the changes, they're doing stuff, and then the next session they're back. They're stuck and you kind of have to work them back through again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I do you're supposed to track what's going on. So what I do is let's have a list of it's like phase one, P1, right? Goal one, G1, and objective one, O1. So it's P1, G1, O1. And just have a list of all this down inside a piece of paper. Or, if it's a EHR, if you're doing this electronically, you can make your own notes and do this. And what I do is I just put a check mark or zero, whatever format I'm doing it. Yeah, I like to do notes on paper. So I'll just, I'll put an X or something, next to that.
Yeah.
And as I'm going through the sessions with people, what I want to see is I want to see a lot of the X's moving down the page.
Really that's a really great visual
Mhm.
of being able to actually really like see the change happening is yeah, moving down the page. I like that.
Yeah. And if I see a lot of X's on one of the phases, goals, and objectives, and it just keeps going across, it's like, well, kind of stuck doing this. I need to figure out what's going on there, right?
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. It's a really good way of seeing the process and seeing, "Hey, yeah, look at" and you can show them too even and
Mhm.
be like, "Hey, look at this. We've kind of been stuck here. What's going on? And what can we do?" Yeah.
Mhm.
Or, "Look at this. You've changed
Yeah.
so much. Like, look at where we've gotten to. Be proud of yourself."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting there. And if I take, a combination of a lot of different clients that I work with, and I look at them and I see where I might be focusing more, then that tells me about what I'm doing in the session and where I
Mm,
might actually start
yeah.
enhancing other areas.
Mhm. That makes sense. Do you feel so you work primarily with couples and families, or do you do individuals? What
Right. I do individual and couples
both?
and family.
Okay. That's interesting to me because I feel like a lot of the existential therapists that I've read are, like, purely individual, and so the family aspect of it and the couples aspect of it is really that's really interesting to me, of pursuing that meaning together as a couple and walking through all the objectives and all of the presuppositions as a couple together or as a family. It's really interesting.
Yes. I do a values card sort. So I'll do it with individuals. If you ever seen a values card sort, they have a whole stack of cards and they try to bring it down to five. But I'll do this with a couple and I'll have the couple working it out together of what their couple values are. It's a good exercise. So, a lot of this,
That's good,
yeah, it
yeah.
does work with couples, even the interaction, like examining the objective, the subjective, and examining the objective, subjective with the other. I mean, this is, getting into I feel when you because kind of stuff also.
Mhm, mhm.
Imago.
Yeah. So we're running out of time
Yeah.
here a little bit. So to kind of like close things out, are there any like overall thoughts that you wanted to give about this model? If you had to say one thing about it, a couple sentences, how would you describe this model or what do you want to leave people with about This.
If they're interested in it, look at it and try to incorporate it. And if you're, a student or a practitioner, think about what you do and how I hate the word, I don't hate it, but thinking outside the box, getting out of those limitations, because sometimes these limitations that we have don't need to be there, and they might be, stifling people. And so I hope it helps
Hmm.
people expand their view of what they're doing and gives them a framework that they can start with and maybe develop their own framework or use this one if they like. And I think one of the questions you had is, can you do this with somebody without like a Christian background?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's really principles. It's principle based. We didn't talk about Matthew 5. That's incorporated in here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Matthew 5, I'll just briefly just throw it out there real fast. Matthew 5, if you read the book from Arthur Pink, it's called The Beatitudes. It shows how Matthew 5 is a progression. It's not necessarily these are the things we need. It's a Jesus opened his ministry with this. He said, here's a syllabus, and then he lived it out. And it starts with being poor in
Yeah.
spirit, identifying your limitations, who you are and who you're not. And it goes on down. So, but that doesn't necessarily have to be talked about if you're working with somebody who doesn't have that faith, but it still
Mhm.
is principle based.
Yeah. The truths are true
Hmm.
no matter who you're talking to. But yeah, with people with faith, you can direct them to scripture and have that component more in it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Is there like a book or a website or something that you have that people can look at and learn more about this?
No.
No.
You
One
just,
day.
okay, maybe one day.
You should. Yeah.
I should. Yeah.
There you go. That's your project.
Okay.
And then when you write it, we'll have you back on.
Yeah. I mean, they can contact me, email
Okay.
if, I don't know if you've
Yeah,
put that contact info in there somewhere, but yeah,
I can.
again, if anybody has any questions,
Yeah.
they can contact me.
And one more question that I am just recently gonna ask all of my guests because I was listening to a podcast and it was such a great question. But what were the books that were most influential in your practice, in your thoughts?
There are a lot of them. The Bible, number
Yeah.
one. Bowen Family Systems Theory, his information, his books. Then you get into the existentialists, some of the modern ones. Hang on a second. I'll get these names. Like I said, I don't remember the
Go
names.
for it.
So, some these aren't Christian existentialists, but they're existentialists, and they really are trying to make this into case formulation. Actually, this one's called Case Formulation Existential Humanistic Therapy by Hoffman and Hoffman. So Lewis Hoffman and
Okay.
Heather Lynn Hoffman. And then also this lady, Emmy Van Durzen. She's done a lot of work with existentialism. But again, that's humanistic existentialism. So, people are going to get that flavor. But
Yeah.
there is a lot of research. There's a lot more happening now with existentialism, mainly from the secular community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully Christians will start thinking about this.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like when I was first interested in it, the feedback I was hearing from people is like, "Oh, well, that's kind of like a older model. People don't really think about that anymore. That's not really relevant anymore." But I feel like I'm hearing more about these thoughts lately. So I don't know. Maybe there's a renaissance.
Yeah.
We'll find out. But yeah, I think, and a lot of the people I've read are don't necessarily have a faith, but it's just so glaring to me how faith applies and how it answers those questions. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
And reading people like I just did an episode on a Tolstoy book, and Tolstoy is not an existentialist technically, but I feel like he's wrestling with all the questions, but he just lands in a different place as sort of the humanistic existentialist. So that's where I would argue with people that say he's not existentialist because it's like he asks the same questions.
Mhm.
It's just the conclusion, I guess, that's different. But
Yeah. Be
yeah.
curious. That's the thing. Be curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Face up to it. Be curious. Let yourself, think about this and don't just distract. Well, John, it was so great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And yeah, if you like what you heard here in this podcast, I do have an e-course. that you can access on udemy.com. The link will be in the description, and I'll talk to you guys later.